Pia, welcome everybody. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Evolve IP and Sandler Partner DRAS session.
DaaS.
We're DaaS. Sorry. Keep me honest, Gary.
You got it.
That's why we're going to bring you on as the special guest speaker. But just wanted to welcome the East Coast team. We're looking forward to a nice, quick, informative webinar. Andy, why don't I add you in?
Yeah, absolutely. Gary, Zach, really looking forward to this one. Really hoping that we all walk away from this session learning a little bit more about DaaS and, how to find these opportunities. Who's looking at DaaS? What are the business drivers for DaaS? How do we uncover these opportunities? So, this is going to be a relatively short call. Gary, let's just jump into it.
Outstanding. Thanks, guys, and really appreciate the partnership. I probably want to say, because I don't think Zach said that while we got the cameras off and we got the mics muted, the chat line is definitely up and running. So I hope at the end we get to all the questions, but I do want to be brief, bright, and gone. I think for a lot of you guys that saw the invitations, and it was sort of like, okay, well, going to be hard making any money selling $5 UCaaS seat and $50 cable modems. And then the other side to this was, if you own the IT stack, you own the client. And there couldn't be a better time or opportunity right now, because guess what? Worst economic conditions we've seen in this country, since the early 80s. And that means that everybody's kind of forced to do more with less. So the theme behind all this is there a better alternative to PC ownership? So let's go through the agenda real quick. And I want to try to cover a lot of topics because Andy challenged me to get as much in as I could in 40 minutes. So we're going to, this is a lot of, everything you wanted to know about DaaS, but maybe we're afraid to ask, starting with, what is it? How do I sell it? Is DaaS a security solution? Kind of interesting. I heard it's expensive. Is it cost effective? Is DaaS a better solution for disaster recovery and business continuity? How about devices? What device will run on DaaS, right? Is DaaS a better solution for my remote contact center agents? What problems does DaaS solve? There will be one slide commercial. Why us for DaaS? Then we're going to get right back to you with what's in it for you. And then we got a new little product introduction that I think everybody's going to find neat. So I'm going to jump in. Andy, you good with that?
Good with it. Let's go for it.
All right. So that is not DaaS. That's bestbuy.com. Okay. If you ever wanted to know what is desktop as a service, this is not it. We've all had a chance to either buy a PC at Best Buy or buy one for one of our kids, and we get there and there's a whole line of them and they all look the same, and one's $500 and one's $2,500. How do we know what the difference is? The difference is in that little box right there. So when you talk about what costs money when you buy a PC, it's four things. It is the CPU, the Intel Core i7. How fast does the machine run? Right? It's RAM. The more RAM, the more programs I can run at the same time. Faster my machine is. It's memory. SSD stands for solid state drive, right? That's the kind of PC that you hit the start button, you're ready to work in 15 seconds, versus the old memory where you hit the start button, go take a shower, blow dry your hair, and maybe, just maybe, the thing will be ready to go. And finally, there's Windows 10, the operating system. So when you take the core components of a PC and deliver it from our host server across the internet to any device, that is what desktop as a service is. All right. I hope the next thing is, how do I sell this thing? Well, to Zach's reminder, right, for those of us that came from the UCaaS space, I was one of them. Way back before we were on round 2 and round 3 of going from 8 to Ring and Ring to Momentum, it was a CapEx versus OpEx decision. And it still is a CapEx versus OpEx decision. 10 years ago, it was, do you want to give $100,000 to Avaya, or do you want to give me $3,000 a month as an operating expense? Same exact value proposition. The difference is, do I want to continue to buy desktops and servers, or do I want to have that all delivered as a service? So CapEx versus OpEx. So right away, take away any fear that you don't know the IT stack, you know business. That means you are capable of selling DaaS. All right. Is DaaS an alternative desktop strategy, or is it a security solution? Let's get to the answer first. I hope there's a bunch of you on the call going, it's both, because you would be right. Okay. Here's what I find interesting. Between Andy and Mark and me, no one goes to more channel events than the three of us. Every time I go to a channel event, there's 10 more companies there that are cybersecurity companies. They're all selling a better mousetrap. Okay? The reality is that DaaS happens to be a security solution, whereas a lot of the security products where it's endpoint management or SASE or managed detection and response are great products. But the problem is you got to have a starting point. And the starting point is that PC networks were designed for people that come to offices. And today, of course, most of our clients are all working remote. So if you come to the end of one of their presentations, it's, we're going to do a vulnerability analysis. I got news for you on a vulnerability analysis. If I have a PC and I take it home and plug it into my unsecured broadband connection, I have a vulnerability. So DaaS is, in fact, a security solution. Let's talk about money. This is what happens all the time when we get into a conversation about PC ownership versus desktop as a service. All right? I'm going to go with the low end for the PC, let's call it $1,200. And the high end for desktop as a service, let's call that $70. Well, the natural thing is, okay, 70 times 12 is 840, and half of that is 420. That means in 18 months I paid for the PC. Well, you would be right, except for one thing. There's a whole lot of other items that one needs to consider when comparing the cost of PC ownership to the cost of DaaS. First thing is, can anybody tell me the last time you went to Best Buy, bought a PC, took it out of the box and plugged it in? Don't work that way. We have to have it provisioned, right? And these days, the loaded cost of a IT guy is about $150,000 a year. It takes about 4 hours to provision a PC. That's $300 or $400 on top of the $1,200 that it costs to buy the PC. Well, then, as we all know, you can't have a PC without antivirus, without web security, without remote management and monitoring capabilities, without two-factor authentication, right? All these things cost money on the left-hand side of that chart. Well, guess what? When it's my PC network, somebody's got to do the security and patching updates that happen often 2 to 4 times a month. So that's anywhere from 1 to 10 hours a month, right? Well, guess what? If I send that PC home and people are trying to connect back to a server, I'm going to have to put another $20 license on there for a VPN, right? Then I've got maintenance for my desktops and servers. And then again, buying a PC ain't like buying a Rolex, right? They just don't last forever, right? I don't care if it's 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. The device that you buy today will need to be replaced. And the server that it connects to will need to be replaced. And one of the more interesting things that's rearing its ugly head, especially in the contact center world, is, well, when a contact center guy that makes $15 an hour decides to leave, and the threat that you have is, we're withholding your $60 paycheck until you give us back our $2,000 PC. So we got PCs that are growing legs and walking away. When you look at that and you compare it to DaaS, which includes and or eliminates all of those other line items, DaaS actually has a lower total cost of ownership than running a PC network. How about this? Is desktop as a service a better solution for disaster recovery and business continuity? Here's some images for you, right? For all of us on the East Coast, we've been dealing with enormous amount of rain. There's somebody in our client world that came to work on a Monday morning with a flooded server room. That's an act of God. There is somebody in our clients that decided to send their PC through airport security, and this is what came out on the other end. And one thing we know about COVID, well, we know that there will be another COVID. Maybe it won't be called COVID-20, but you get the point. All three of these, acts of God, hardware failure, the next pandemic, they're all a thing of the past once you're no longer reliant on physical PCs and physical servers. We're often asked what devices will run on desktop as a service. Well, there's the obvious ones. It'll run on a tablet, it'll run on a thin client, it'll run on what they call a zero client, it'll run on your old desktop PC, right? It'll run on your phone. In fact, it'll run on your kid's Xbox because that connects to the internet. What's most important, though, is DaaS is designed to extend the life of the existing hardware. This is the one that we lean on the most because when we're deploying DaaS, people already have devices, right? It's just now the device isn't doing any of the compute that's behind CPU, RAM, disk, and the operating system. So it means that that device gets to last 2-3 times longer. The other thing that I find interesting is, I probably wouldn't recommend this, but can I pull that old DaaS, that old Windows 7 machine? Will it run DaaS? Yeah, it'll run DaaS. It might not be a great experience, but it certainly will run DaaS. Every one of us has had the opportunity to go into a customer's data room. They're so proud to show us. And, while we're looking at servers and we're freezing, right, there's always a stack of laptops. And if you've ever said to your client, what are they? They'll be the first one to tell you, well, they're the 2 gig, 4 gig machines that still run, but they're too slow. Those devices now go back into service because there's no problem with those devices running virtual desktop. All right, I want to tell you a story real quick. True story too. This is we're going to talk a little bit about contact center and DaaS. This is customer experience gone wrong. True story. There's good old Gary. Gets his bill from T-Mobile, right? And I think to myself, there's a line item on there for handset protection. I've been paying it forever. $20 a month. And I'm one of these guys, like all of us on the phone, that if I were to lose my phone today, before I went home for the evening, I'd be at the T-Mobile store getting another one because I cannot live without it. I don't have time. Handset protection is an insurance claim. I can't wait 5 days for an adjuster to tell me they're going to replace my phone. So I decide that I'm going to call T-Mobile and I don't want to pay that anymore. In the T-Mobile world, you pick up your mobile phone, you dial 611, and that connects you to an auto attendant. Auto attendant comes on, does a data dip, recognizes my phone number, calls me by my first name. Gary, how can I help you today? Well, obviously I'm talking to a machine, so I give them the one-word response, billing. Then the auto attendant comes back and says, no problem. Enter your PIN number and we'll get you to someone that can help. Okay, so now they're going to authenticate me. Right? This is all the things about modern contact centers that are great. They are calling me by my first name. They're authenticating me. And then last but not least, we've all experienced this. We're a little busy right now, Gary. Without losing your place in line, would you like us to call you back in 41 to 43 minutes? Press 1 to continue. Okay, that's wonderful. That's now a data dip, an authentication, and what they call queue callback. So far, I couldn't be any happier. I press one, I hang up the phone. 41 minutes later, my mobile phone rings from my T-Mobile team of experts. Right now, one of the things about doing what we do for a living is I kind of knew right away I was talking to an agent that was not in the United States. And of course, the rooster that went cock-a-doodle-doo in the background was kind of a dead giveaway that I was talking to an agent that was, I think, in the Philippines. But nevertheless, she calls me by my first name and she says, Gary, I have your account in front of me. How can I help you? And I proceed to say, now I want to remove handset insurance. She comes back and she says, I'll need to access the billing system. Please hold. Right. Now the problem starts. She says, my systems are running slow. Would you mind holding? Now, again, one of the things about, one of the things about knowing a thing or two about a thing or two, like, when you're talking to an agent that's not in the US, and that in my particular case, T-Mobile's headquartered in Bellevue, Washington. Their billing system is running on a server in Bellevue, Washington, and she's trying to connect from her Philippines address via a VPN to the billing system, and it's not working, right? So then here comes the painful process. 40 minutes later, she comes back on the phone. She says, I'm really sorry, Gary, for the horribly painful delay, but I've been able to remove that from your invoice. Is there anything else I can help you with? I say no. And then here's the real problem. The real problem is T-Mobile then gives me an automated response and says, on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, please rate your experience. Well, prior to the little, my systems are running slow, that call was a 10, right? It went from a 10, unfortunately, to a 1. Now, how could we have fixed that? See, again, CX, customer experience, is more than just connecting the caller to the agent. So let's just assume for a second that I'm the person on the left, the agent's the person on the right, right? Only now in the middle, we're going to deliver a virtual desktop. And inside that virtual desktop, I'm not trying to tell T-Mobile you shouldn't use Five9, Nice, Genesis, TalkDesk, whomever. What I'm telling T-Mobile is I can run any contact center platform in my desktop. Right? So let's take that off the equation. I'm trying to save you from having to buy a PC and connect it to a VPN. Well, what about security? Great question. I'm going to authenticate them via their Active Directory, and I'm going to challenge them with multi-factor authentication before I gain them access to their virtual desktop. But now what I'm going to be able to deliver inside of their virtual desktop without a VPN is not only their SaaS-based applications like Outlook and Salesforce, but all those legacy client server applications that normally were running on physical servers, like the order management system, like the billing system at T-Mobile, right? So when you think about DaaS, right, the agent not only gets access to whatever contact center platform they're using today, but to all those internal client server-based applications, all without a VPN or corporate-owned PC. If you've got contact centers that are going remote, which I'm sure all of you do, DaaS is a perfect solution for them. All right. Coming to the end, what problems does DaaS solve? Well, the obvious ones. I can work anywhere, off of any device, without the need to purchase a new PC. Productivity, right? Think about this. I can spin up 500 virtual desktops in 10 minutes. Takes 2,000 man hours to provision 500 physical PCs. And what does that enable me to do? It enables me to actually take my IT staff and focus them on something other than managing PCs. Well, what about the security? Well, how about this? problem that everybody has with security, it's not the hardened server, it's the endpoint, it's the PC. With DaaS, the endpoint doesn't matter. So it reduces the need for endpoint for endpoint management. It reduces the need for SASE. Not that those are not good solutions, but until you consolidate the desktop environment inside the data center, think about this. When you log into a virtual desktop, it's like going into the data center. That's where you are. And because of that, you can have secured access without having to use a VPN. All right. One quick commercial, right? That's it. One quick commercial on Evolve IP. Why us? There are other people. There's Rapid Scale. There's Effortless Office. Not as many as the UCaaS and CCaaS and SD-WAN and the rest, but there's a few of us. Why us? Well, we deploy something called multi-cloud, multi-protocol. Right? What does that mean? That means I can deliver it publicly or privately. I can deliver it out of my data centers, right, which are East Coast availability out of Philly, West Coast availability out of SuperNap Vegas. Or if they've got contact center agents all over the world, I can deliver it in Azure because we are a Microsoft Gold partner and CSP. Right? The other thing is, I'm not married to Citrix or VM. They are the two leading providers of virtualization. I do both, right? So multi-cloud, Evolve IP or Azure, multi-protocol, Citrix or VMware. This has got to be the single most critical part of this slide, right? I don't have to be the telephony provider. Would you believe that we have virtual desktop customers today running 8, running Ring, running Zoom, running WebEx, running Five9? To me, it's just an application, right? It's like installing QuickBooks. The difference is that at our core, we are and have been a voice provider since 2008, right? So we are actually experts at delivering real-time audio video. If you talk to anybody in the contact center world, they'll say, you want to run voice through the desktop? Can't do it. Won't work. Well, we proved to Five9 when they certified us that not only does it work, but if you don't run it through the desktop, you got a compliance problem. Speaking of which, this is a big reason that people come to us for virtual desktop, because we're high trust certified, which is critically important in the medical world. We're PCI, right? That's all retail, financial, right? We're SOC and we're GDPR. So we bring compliance requirements that are important to many industries, and the ones that we don't have, we'll lean on Microsoft for. Everybody's interested in Gartner. We have been noted in every DaaS market guide since Gartner started putting out a DaaS market guide. And then this is the one thing that nobody really knows. We're the second largest hosting provider for VMware in the United States, along with being a premier Citrix CSP. Back to you. What's in it for you? Well, 100% of the time, when you sell DaaS, you get the infrastructure. When you sell virtual desktops, you get virtual servers. They have to go hand in hand. Can't sell DaaS and leave the servers in a closet. Can't do it. We won't take it. It won't work, right? Migrate your desktops, guaranteed 100% of the time that you're migrating the infrastructure as well. This is what's really interesting. 95 to 97%, 95, 98%, most people choose to get all those things you saw on the earlier slide. So, well, I'm going to get my Office 365 to Evolve IP because, one, I pay the same price to Evolve IP that I would to Microsoft, but Microsoft doesn't answer the phone. When I have a problem, Evolve IP does. So why not do that? I'm going to give my Trend Micro antivirus, my Cisco Umbrella for web filtering, right? My multi-factor authentication, through Clear Login, my data backup for Veeam, and my remote monitoring and management. Now, all of these services are $2, $3, $2, $3. But the fact of the matter is that anywhere from 95 to 99% of the time, these additional services come with your DaaS sale, making it stickier. Right? Now, what could come, and focus on the second one. You lead with voice. When they start having a conversation about IT, you're outside the glass tapping on the window. You lead with IT, you get the phone call that says, we want to turn Teams into our PBX. Can you do that? So what could come with a DaaS sale is you could get, to Mark's earliest point, you could get the DR. You could get disaster recovery as a service. You likely will get the voice solution. And as we talked about, there's a high degree of likelihood that you'll get the CX solution. DaaS is a needle mover. We talked about this, right? The days of selling $25 UCaaS seats are long gone. So what you're looking at here is top 50 DaaS customers sold through the channel in the last 5 years, right? These customers originally came to us at 866,000. The same exact customers are billing $2.2 million. Another way to look at that is that initial sale was 17 grand. The average revenue per client, same customer, is up to $44,000. Think about that. Customer calls you up and says, I need 20 more phones. That's a $100 ad. Whoop-de-doo. Customer calls you up, says, I'm hiring 20 people. I need 20 desktops. That's a $1,400 ad. Think that's got some value? All right. Got a new product announcement and a little Philly humor to go with it. So in Philly, if you come to Philadelphia and you order a cheesesteak, the guy behind the counter is going to say without. Wit is with onions, with cheese whiz. Without is without cheese whiz, without onions. So we decided that we had the resources to deliver a complete office in a box solution. And when you think about this, this is pretty cool, right? It's 100 user minimum, right? It includes 8 gig desktops for everybody, equivalent to the PC you're using right now. It includes an Active Directory server, domain controller, and a storage server with 1.1 terabits of storage. It includes Veeam backup. It includes a Microsoft 365 E3 license, plus a Microsoft Teams phone system license. It includes Teams PBX with unlimited minutes and the DID. It includes your full security suite that consists of Trend Micro for antivirus, Enable for RMM, Cisco Umbrella for web security, and a Cisco firewall, all for the bundled price of $99.99. This is going to open up a lot of conversations because your customers already know that a full third of that is in Microsoft licensing. So that's WIT. What's without? $68.99. You bring your own Microsoft licensing. This is really, really cool. I want you guys, this is already opening up a ton of interesting conversations with people. All right. I think this is just about the last slide. Nope, I got 2 slides. This is the one before the last. So I told you earlier, there's rapid, there's effortless, right? I gave you some why us reasons. I'll give you the big why us. We are the only desktop as a service provider that pays a spiff. Right? The new spiff for Q3 is pick your term, pick your product. Sign a 2-year deal, get a 2x spiff. Sign a 3-year deal, get a 3x spiff. Plus, if you bring it in, it's interesting and it closes before the end of the year, we'll give you an extra term. That's on either our desktop products or our UC products. And the last slide is, what else does Evolve IP do? So we've spent the last 45 minutes talking about virtual desktop, right? I think many of you folks on the phone today know us as being a Microsoft Teams shop, which we are. Right? We're Cisco WebEx. We're not a UCaaS provider anymore. We just do Teams voice. We do Cisco voice. We also have our own contact center platform that is primarily for people that want contact center actually embedded inside of Teams. And we have already talked about this concept of using DaaS to improve customer experience over somebody else's CCaaS platform. All right, I'm gonna leave this slide up there for a second. That office in a box, there's a data sheet that's there. QR code, by all means, take a picture. That was the end of my prepared comments. Zach, I'm gonna turn it back to you.
All right, let's get to these quick. So Mike's first question was, how can we sell Evolve IP, DaaS, and Office 365 or Google G Suite? I think we covered that.
Okay, so we are not so real quick, we are a Microsoft Gold partner in CSP, so we can sell licensing on Microsoft. We are not a GCP shop, so no Google with Evolve IP.
Hal asked if we ran our private cloud. We do. We covered that, public or private. Lior, client needs the outsourced person around the world to have hardware level native webcam, microphone experience for Zoom, Teams, or Google. Is this possible with DaaS into Chromebook?
You got to read that again. I'm not that fast.
So the client needs the outsourced person around the world to have hardware level native webcam / microphone experience for Zoom, Teams, or Google Voice. Is this possible with DaaS and a Chromebook?
I got it. The Chromebook question. So I talked earlier about real-time audio video. I think this is actually important. So real-time audio video is actually using the resources of the host machine, right? So it's using your voice card on the device. It's using the video card on the device. Chromebooks will certainly run DaaS, but they are not the device of choice for somebody that has to have real-time audio video, right? And again, I just want to make sure that one of the things that you can expect from us from an engineering support perspective is we're a voice provider, right? When you activate RTAV, real-time audio video optimization, it's about turning switches, turning knobs, and creating settings. But we understand the voice business. We understand that there are some anomalies out there. One of those anomalies is Chrome OS does not support real-time audio video really well, right? We would prefer that they are using, if real-time audio video is critical to them, the expectation is they're using their existing PC, regardless of what is embedded in that PC. Next.
What does it look like for a customer looking to run UCaaS or CCaaS in a DaaS environment?
Perfectly fine. That really speaks to the last question. Yeah, I mean, the one thing about real-time audio video and our experience in deploying it is it's without question, based on full HD video, full HD audio, right? The biggest problem in the rich media has been with Microsoft and terminal services and AWS. They're running a protocol, RDP, that doesn't support it, which is why you can't run a YouTube video. In our environment, attached to the right device and engineered the right way, we can absolutely positively run HD video and HD audio through the desktop. And when you do it through the desktop, you maintain your compliance. Next.
Can you run multiple screens with DaaS?
Yes.
Mike asked what remote VDI technologies or protocols does Evolve IP support? I think we covered that. Can Evolve IP or can an Evolve IP desktop be configured in a work group peer scenario?
I'll need more on that one. That might be so. Either very simple. Whomever asked that question, give me a little bit more depth. Coben, Coben at evolveip.net, and let me get you an answer. What else?
Can an Evolve IP desktop be configured to connect to a customer's cloud data at Wasabi or Amazon S3?
Probably also an engineering question, but again, I think what's important to understand is a virtual desktop and a physical desktop are the exact same thing. It's just one lives locally and one's living in the cloud. So can I connect to, a server that's running in Amazon? Sure. I'm going to use a VPN to do it. There'll be no difference in latency, if that's really what the question is. But yeah, there's no problem connecting to other databases with the right permissions and the right security practices, right? Which in this particular case is likely going to be a VPN license.
If they're flipping everything to HP thin clients, is there CapEx to consider?
Well, no. Well, if they've already bought them, then no. If their intent is that I want to start replacing devices, like I want to take the PCs that we're currently using out and deploy thin clients. I mean, we have plenty of customers that have done that, right? Running any thin client, running any zero client is going to work just fine in a desktop environment. It would be interesting. It would be important to understand the applications they are running, right? But if you go to like VMware's site or Citrix site, they give you, they have a full list of devices that are supported inside of their protocols.
How can we add customer-specific apps to a DaaS desktop?
Through the golden image, right? So essentially, if you're thinking about, well, how are DaaS profiles set up? So for instance, at Evolve IP, I think we run 3 profiles, right? There's a sales and marketing profile, there's a finance profile, there's an engineering profile, because we run different applications. If it's a customer's homegrown application, we're probably going to want to load it up and do a proof of concept just to make sure. Like these days, it's kind of rare that an application won't virtualize. But if it's one that, if it's one that we're completely not familiar with, we're going to want to build it, test it, and have the customer stress test it before we actually put it in the full production.
How does Evolve IP work with MSPs who are already resellers for Microsoft, Google, Enable, and multiple backup solutions?
Now, one of the things I wanted to be clear about, and I should have, and that's a great question, by the way. On that slide that I had that says what comes and what should come, we do not force a customer to buy anything from us. The only thing that is a guarantee is if they are purchasing DaaS VDI from us, they are going to migrate their servers to us. But in terms of using somebody else as their Microsoft provider, no problem. Somebody else provide an RMM, no problem. We have customers using their own AV. So it's not an issue at all. It's not an issue at all. The only issue that comes, and clients make this decision on their own, is sometimes we've got to figure out when there's a problem, whose problem it is, right? But that's no different than anybody else.
What if a client is a Google shop and not Microsoft?
SOL, baby, they're shit out of luck. Listen, I shouldn't say that. There's no problem to run Google, but we're in the business of selling Windows 10 licensing, Right? That is the native OS for our DaaS solution is Windows 10, Windows 11. Right? So doesn't, if they're running Gmail, well, of course it's going to work because all you need to get to Gmail is browser, right? But if they want to run Google OS in our desktop, won't work.
Is this available in Canada?
Is this available?
More importantly, local data residency related to that.
So we just are in the process now of getting our Canadian Microsoft licensing available.
Yep. That'll.
So I'm not 100% sure. I can tell you absolutely positively a couple of things, though. They must have a US presence. And we are not billing in Canadian dollars. There are two absolute requirements because, while, Evolve IP UK is headquartered in Wales and Evolve IP EU is headquartered in Rotterdam, Evolve IP LLC is headquartered in the United States. So we are not a Canadian entity. So one of the prerequisites is, yes, we can support I think to Andy's point, if there is a need, like if we're going to spin up DaaS in our private cloud, right? I'm not sure GDPR is applicable outside of Europe. That means that their data is sitting in the United States. Can I spin up DaaS in, and lean on the Azure's Toronto data center? Sure, I could do that too. But as long as there's not a requirement for them to keep that the data must stay local. If the data has to stay local, it's an Azure only deal. If it's got to bill it in Canadian dollars, that's a non-starter. And if they don't have a US presence, that's a non-starter.
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
I think this is the last one. So for Sandler agents, is there a test drive available for them to e-stand use before going to market?
I'm going to take a crack at that. And we've talked about this. I mean, can we spin up a virtual desktop and let somebody run with it? Yeah, it's underwhelming. And here's what I mean by that. Like, DaaS only is applicable if it's got your stuff in it, right? Well, that's a production environment. I can't give you a DaaS trial seat and put your email in it. And so the funny thing is like one of the more underwhelming things is a DaaS demo, because it's like when you launch DaaS, it's the start menu. It's Windows.
Regular
So
desktop.
yeah, it's just Windows. And yeah, sure, it'll have Internet Explorer in it, and you can go ahead and surf the web. But in terms of its meaningful experience is when it's got your data running your applications. And that we can't do. That's a production environment. So well, I'm always happy to have conversations about that. But the unfortunate part, but the reality is there's no like, wow, look at this. It looks like a PC.
I think, Gary, I mean, that was a great question, but a better way to ask that, even, and I'm sure a lot of partners are thinking about this. You're one of the only suppliers that's, saying that you'll support that UCaaS or CCaaS traffic in your DaaS environment. So, they're going to hear from a lot of the UCaaS suppliers that the UCaaS supplier themselves doesn't support their platform in a DaaS environment. Are you open to like a proof of concept with the right?
100%.
Okay.
100. And I'll tell you, there's a great story behind that, Andy, and I don't mind taking an extra minute to talk about it. You know, we have a monster customer who's got 2,500 desktops from us and 2,500 5.9 seats. And if you go to any of the major contact center providers, they all have an online marketplace, so if you want to buy some piece of software that will translate Spanish into English text, there's all these things. Five9's got a marketplace, and Genesis has one. So we went to Five9 and we said, we want you to certify our DaaS client, right? The first thing was convincing them that I didn't need the APIs to do that, because I'm not integrating anything. I'm merely running your solution in my desktop. We get on the phone with all their engineers. They're like, "Nah, it won't work. You need a physical desktop." And the unfortunate part about it for them was I had a customer for 3 years running 2,500 virtual desktops, and they couldn't believe it. So we spun it up, put their solution in it, gave it to them for a few weeks, and they came back there's just this knee-jerk reaction from a lot of the telephony providers that it won't work in a virtual environment. And that's nonsense. It will. So to Andy, to your point, we do proof of concepts all day, every day with clients. We want them. We don't want an unhappy client. You don't want an unhappy client. I'll tell you, there's a little secret good news on all of this is when you migrate to the cloud, you ain't going back. You ain't going back. So we want to make sure that customers are happy. We're willing to run a proof of concept all day, every day. We just don't run proof of concepts that are like, hey, here you go, use it. If you don't like it, no problem. We want proof of concepts with real test points, right? With real proof points. And it protects both of us. It protects Evolve. It protects Sandler, and it protects the Sandler partner. And the fact that, we don't want to do all this work and give the client, gee, I changed my mind, so that's got to fail. It's got to fail for that proof of concept not to turn into a sale.
Gary, one more question. We're over 5 minutes. This shouldn't take more than 5 seconds. Any minimum requirements on DaaS from a user perspective?
Yes. We are always looking, and here's a good way to think about this. We are always looking for like a $2,500 minimum. Okay. Typically in the DaaS world, that is 50 seats.
Okay.
Okay. I think the value proposition of DaaS speaks to something higher than that, but I would say the bare floor on this thing is 50 seats.
Okay.
Have we had enough of Phaneuf? I always love saying that, by the way.
There was one last question, but outside of DaaS, are we able to sell a full Microsoft Teams voice solution with all Microsoft licenses?
Yes.
Easy enough.
So Colin, that is via direct routing. That's what they're leveraging.
Guys,
no calling plan.
Yeah, guys, this was fun. Andy, this was fun. I appreciate it. I want to thank everybody. Zach, nice job on emceeing the whole thing. Mark, appreciate your support. Guys, we are here. We want to get involved. I'll tell you right now, take that DaaS bundle, right? Start talking to your clients about it. It will raise eyebrows. It will raise eyebrows. Zach, back to you.
That's it, everybody. I will send a follow-up with the full video, and we will send something out to all of you individually for follow-up. So be on the lookout for that. But I appreciate everybody, and thank you to all of our partners, and we'll talk to you guys soon. And thank you, Andy and Mark.